As a YouTuber, is your mental health at stake? We're gonna talk about it, and we're starting right now.
That's just how it is. Ain't waiting on me.
What is going on? My name is Nick from TuberTools.com. Welcome to another video. If this is your first time here and you want to learn how to grow your channel, make videos, and all types of other YouTube related stuff, start now by subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. Okay, this is a serious topic and I want to discuss it because a lot of content creators tie their self-worth to what is happening on their YouTube channel or how many followers they have or how well a video performs and things like that. There's also the side of things like what happens when your channel gets popular, you start having people follow you and like what it is that you're doing, and how does your brain manage that kind of stuff? We're gonna talk about it, and this is all in reference to you, so make sure that you watch this entire video because it's important for your own mental health, that you are in tune with some of the stuff that you might go through as a new content creator or as your channel grows. There's some changes and some things that you might think about that it's really important to make sure that you are aware of so that when those times come, you're prepared. Now, I want to start with talking about intertwining your self-worth with who you are on the internet. The realities of doing anything online are that sometimes things are going to be up, sometimes things are going to be down, sometimes you're going to get a positive response, sometimes you're going to get a hater, or you're going to get some type of response that is going to make you feel like crap. Now, of course, it is healthy to take feedback, but on the other hand, when you start getting tied up into this persona that you're putting out online and you start getting tied up in the way that people are reacting to you online, it can really do a number on your self-worth. And the reason for that is because, when things are going well, it's like, yeah, I'm feeling awesome, everything's going great. And then when things, go down a bit, you might be like, oh my gosh, what's happening? It's all over. People don't like me anymore. And that's where the real problem sets in, because in situations like that, the problem isn't that they don't like you anymore. It's just, it might be something that's out of your hands. It might be like an algorithm change, or it might be something else. Maybe it's in the content in terms of how people are responding to that content, but it's the content, it's not you. And the important thing to always remember in that situation is, okay, if you have a video that goes bad, or you have a bunch of comments where people are like, oh my gosh, this sucks, why did you even do this? Or they're picking on, the way you look, or they're picking on something because it's the internet and it's anonymous and they can do that sort of thing. Try to not let yourself get caught up in that, because what it is that you do in terms of, you're a YouTube content creator, you're a content creator for the internet, what it is that you do isn't who you are. And it's really important to make sure that you remember that, because when you start getting these attacks on your ego, essentially, you start getting these attacks from people in the comment section saying bad things about you, or people aren't responding to your videos the way that you would like, or whatever, or let's say your numbers start dropping, whatever that happens to be, when you start tying yourself to those responses and you start tying your self-worth to those responses, it can lead you down a spiral, so to speak, into a place to where you go from feeling awesome to all of a sudden you're getting these weird responses on the internet and you start feeling horrible about yourself for no real reason. And you might even be going through something like this right now. But a funny thing is as you start to grow your influence online, in addition to the bad side of it, right? In addition to the side of, people saying you suck, or they're picking on how you look or how you say things or whatever it happens to be. In addition to that, you have the flip side of that coin as well, which can be equally as damaging, but on the other side. When you start building a following on the internet and you start getting the numbers that you're chasing initially when you start a YouTube channel, when you start getting those numbers and you start getting the accolades that come from having a successful YouTube channel or a big Twitter following or a big Instagram following, whatever it is for you, when you start having all of that positive feedback coming in and people are always saying, hey, this is amazing, this is good, you're helping, or you're getting emails from people and they're telling you these changes that you've helped them make and things like that, when that stuff starts happening, it can go the other way to where you start feeling like, hey, I've got a big head in this, right? It's like, wow, I'm making all of this change and I'm helping these people out and I'm doing this stuff. And that can also be damaging, because what happens is you take your normal self and again, you're attaching yourself to what it is that you're doing on the internet. Now, of course, if you're doing good and you can embrace that. But on the flip side, you can't let that be who you are. You can't let your videos and the response that you're getting from your videos come through the internet and be who you are, so to speak, because you're not. you're not your YouTube videos, you're not your Twitter posts, you're not your Instagram posts. Sure, you're in your videos, maybe you're in your Instagram pictures and so on, but that's not who you are. You are not that stuff, right? But the thing is it's really easy to get caught up in all of this feedback that you're getting, because before you started doing the online stuff, right? Like before you started uploading to YouTube, for example, you just had your normal life and you just had your, immediate circle of people that you were in contact with. And then now that you're putting yourself out onto the internet, you have an entire world full of people that are giving you feedback, that are letting you know their thoughts, and they also get to hide behind it on the internet as well for the negative side. But on the positive side, again, it's something to where even if you are doing well, you have to manage in your brain that your YouTube channel and your YouTube success or your Instagram success or LinkedIn success or whatever it is that you're doing, like that is not who you are. Right? It's something that you do, and that work that you've put in has brought you that success, but that success is not who you are as a person. So if it were to get taken away tomorrow, you would still be you, but that side of what it is that you do would be taken away. I mean, don't get me wrong, having the numbers and stuff, it's cool, but again, it's not who you are. And the more that you let those numbers define who that you are, good or bad, if you let those numbers define who you are, then you're kind of losing a part of yourself into this, and you become emotionally dependent on it, which is where the real problems start to happen. For example, put out a video, it does great. You're like, yes, I'm amazing. Put out a video, it does poorly. And then you're like, oh man, I suck. That was a bad decision, right? Now, don't get me wrong. There is, hey, I need to be better at this, or hey, okay, yeah, I'm doing well. How can I do better? But the side of directly attaching yourself to the individual results or the total results and connecting your self-worth to that is a really damaging thing to do to your emotional state. Now, another layer of this comes down to your personal time. And a lot of people struggle with this one. I did as well. But it comes down to your personal time, because as you start growing your influence, you're going to have people start reaching out to you from all over the place. Because again, you went from having your personal circle of friends and maybe you had like a bigger connection on Facebook, but you have like that tight-knit group of people, right? But then now you are having success on social media. And because of that, people are reaching out to you on Twitter, on Instagram, on Snapchat. They're sending you emails, they're in your YouTube comments and all of that. It's important, and this is going to sound terrible, but it's really important that you put up some type of barrier, because you have to protect your personal time. When it comes to doing all of this stuff, yes, of course, you want to interact with people as much as possible, but set aside time for it, right? You don't want to constantly be interrupting your real life experiences interacting on the internet because you feel, hey, these people are reaching out to me, I have to connect with them. It's good, and that's very good practice, but at some point you have to reserve some of your personal time so that you can, one, remember who you are, right? And two, so that you can do the things that you want to do outside of the social media influence that you're trying to build. But what I'm telling you here is that it's okay, right? I'm giving you that permission right now. It's okay to give yourself a barrier of sorts to where you're protecting some of your personal time, because that personal time for just managing your own thoughts and not always being caught up in what's going on, with your social media accounts, like that personal time, like that's where your real personal growth is going to come from. And then when you have that personal growth, then you can apply it to what it is that you do on social media, which can help you get better results that way, instead of just constantly feeling like a slave, so to speak, to social media. So you're creating that separation. And another thing with creating that space is it also becomes difficult to manage things if you don't, because, as all of this stuff goes along, you start getting these additional opportunities that come in. And then of course, managing everything becomes more of a task. And when you're doing all of that, if you're constantly working on the feedback side, then that takes away from the creative side and from the productive side of actually taking things farther in what it is that you're doing. And the cool thing about it, for the sake of your mental health, is once you do set up some type of boundaries with what it is that you're doing and how much time you allot to social media, once you do set up those boundaries, you can set up exceptions anytime you want. So let's say, for example, you're hanging out on the weekend, or you're hanging out, some night during the week, and you have some extra time and you think to yourself, you know what? Right now I could be doing something else, but I don't really want to do much. So I'm just going to sit around and I'm just going to answer comments, for example, or I'm going to interact a little bit more on Facebook, because at this point in time, it's not going to impede on my social life or the barriers that I've set. I can bring it down just a little bit for the evening. But I'm sure you've seen it online. I'm sure you've seen it when you've been out and about and so on. Like when you start letting this stuff take over your life, so to speak, you start letting it take up all of your mental space, what can happen is you're out with your significant other, or you are out with your friends or whatever. And when you are out in your real life, what you're doing is you're constantly checking your phone, you're answering comments while you're sitting there with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or when you're hanging out with your buddy, you're sitting there and you're answering comments, or you're, replying to tweets and things like that, instead of taking that time to do the healthy thing for your brain, for your mental state, which is interact with the people that are sitting right there in your personal space. And I know that this is a little bit ranty, but stick with me here. Now, another thing that a lot of content creators do, because we obviously love doing this kind of stuff, right? Another thing that we often do is we'll do it too much. So it's like we're always working on video ideas, we're always making videos, and we're not taking much time for ourselves. And what can happen there is, especially if you're somebody that doesn't do this full time and you work a job, then basically you're working your job, and then when you come home, you're doing this. So it's like you're working 2 jobs and you're not leaving much time for yourself, which can really, over time, right? Maybe in the moment, it's like, okay, I'm like doing what I should be doing. But over time, if you don't pace yourself somewhat, that can result in burnout. And burnout's like a legit thing. I went through it on my channel, not this channel, but I went through it on another channel as well. And during that process, I wasn't full-time on YouTube yet. So I had my design service, and then I was doing YouTube. So I was doing basically 2 full-time jobs. And when I was doing that, I just couldn't handle the work. And that's what it came down to. And it got to the point to where I was actually not doing the work that I needed to do because I loved making videos. And it ended up causing me even more stress than I was dealing with in the moment, because I just wanted to go all in on YouTube, but I just wasn't there yet in the journey. So it's important to pace yourself. Don't stop, keep going, but it's important to pace yourself and know how much you can handle, or figure out how much you can handle. And once you kind of take it to that line, pull it back a little bit to make sure that you can sustain, because the last thing that you want is to put all of your efforts into something and all of your passion and your heart into something to create something awesome. And you create that, but then you can't hold it together because you've kind of overcommitted yourself to where it's like, I've got this job, and then after this job, I come and I make YouTube videos, and then I also go on podcasts, and I'm like live streaming, and then I'm like, interacting with people on Twitter and Instagram. And the next thing you know, it's like, wow, I'm like not even sleeping as much as I should because I'm trying to do all of this stuff. And then you start falling into like depression or just feeling that extra stress or whatever it happens to be. It's not worth it. Now, with that said, of course, with anything, there's going to be sacrifices that you have to make. But what I'm saying is you need to try to find some type of balance. Of course, you're going to need to put in that extra work. If you got a job and you want to do this also, sure, you're going to have to put in some work in order to make that happen. However, putting in work versus overcommitting yourself to the point to where you're not even sleeping enough at night for a long period of time because you're just trying to do this too much, it's not good for your brain. Now, when it comes to burnout, one thing that you might want to just be aware of is, like, if you start reading your comments and you start like resenting comments, and you start, resenting the process of making videos, you start getting to that point to where you're like, I don't even want to make a video. Like, when those things start to happen, you're probably starting to burn out, because, that newness of like, hey, this is great, everything's starting to roll, like that newness is starting to wear off, and you're like, okay, now I'm getting into like the rhythm of this, but it's too much. And because it's too much, it's becoming negative for me in my brain. So like, those are things that you should start looking for. Like, if you're not enjoying any part of the process, or it becomes something you become resentful at, then you might want to take a step back and give yourself a little bit of breathing room for the sake of being able to sustain it long term. And with any of this stuff, or anything in life really, like, as things start to do well and you start to get that success, then you start getting more pressures that come with that. So make sure that as you are making these transitions into different phases of your journey, make sure that you also give yourself space to kind of work through all of that stuff and to deal with the pressures as they're coming, so that you don't just grind it all out. And then next thing you know, you wake up one day and you're like, this is like, what have I done? Right? Like, I'm not happy. I'm not like enjoying this. So like, make sure that you work yourself through that. One thing that I do for that is I meditate, and that helps me tremendously. Another thing that's really important to do when it comes to your mental state is, when changes happen on YouTube, instead of going and consuming all of this content about them and trying to, form opinions based on what all these different creators are saying, first take a step back and say, okay, how does this affect me exactly, right? Is it an inconvenience? Is this something that's gonna be like a destroyer of my channel? Like what is actually going on here? Because there's a lot of people that will make videos and hype up negativity for the sake of getting views. So because of that, you wanna make sure that the content that you're consuming around this stuff, when changes do happen, that you have your opinion formed first and then you go through and you start consuming the content. Because if not, then you're gonna just get bombarded with all this negativity, which typically is just people hyping everything up to make it seem worse so that people will watch their videos. But when it comes to that stuff though, you know, of course you wanna be knowledgeable and you wanna know what's happening in your industry, which is YouTube. Of course you wanna be knowledgeable. However, you just don't wanna get caught up in the drama side of it, because as soon as you start getting caught up in that hype, then it can do some serious damage here in terms of how you see what's actually happening and how you see the opportunities that you have here as a content creator. Now, there's other sides of this stuff also. Like, you know, another thing that a lot of people do is they have like comparisons to where it's like, oh, well, they connect themselves not only to their social media success or failures, but they also connect them to other people's, which makes it even worse, right? Because instead of just looking at your own self and your own improvements and things you can do better, you're looking at other channels and you're comparing yourself to them, which is making you feel bad, right? Because in your brain, you're like, why is it working for them and it's not working for me? And it could be something that you're not even like seeing at this point in time. But at the end of the day, it's really that they are doing their thing. They're a totally different person doing a totally different type of content. Even if it's the same genre, they're still doing it in their way, right? So it's a different person doing things their way, and then you're this person doing things your way. So of course, you're gonna get different results. And without having back-end access to a channel, unless you have stats access to where you can actually go in and see what's actually happening, it's not healthy to make comparisons, because when you do that, you're just kind of guessing on what could possibly be happening on these channels compared to yours, instead of actually having data to lean on when it comes to making those assumptions or forming those ideas. So make sure to keep your mind together. But I made a whole video actually about the whole comparison thing. You can watch it right here. And if you have a YouTuber friend, just pick one YouTuber friend and share this video with them, just because it's important that content creators know how to manage their mental state and just be prepared for their YouTube success. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.